Hello everyone, this is Mitch and welcome to another Kerbal Space Program capsule. So today I'm going to explain how to get encounters and how to tweak them to go exactly where you want to go. So here we are in a tracking station, and if you take notice here at the top of the screen, we are on year 2, day 251. This corresponds roughly to the launch window to go to Joule. Now, what is a launch window? Long story short, rather, a launch window is basically a set of relative positions between two planets that you want to go to and from. So basically, for example, you can have a launch window to go to Joule, which corresponds to this phase angle, basically. And you can have a launch window to go from Duna to Moho or Eve or anything like that. So basically, this tells you where the planets need to be for you to go from one planet to the other with the least amount of effort. And in this case, effort equals fuel and meters per second of delta V. So we are coming up on a Joule launch window. And the way you tell this, basically, here I'm using the plugin for Alex Moon's transfer window planner. I'm going to put a link to my useful tools video that explains basically what a launch window, well, not what a launch window is, but what tools I use to find out when is a launch window. So this is one, and we're going to move on to the actual encounter part. So we're going to jump with Jeb aboard an orbiting vehicle. And now I'm going to set up maneuver nodes in succession. I'm not going to actually execute them. So you don't need to set up all your maneuver nodes ahead of time like this. But, I mean, it's something you can do, actually. So, Joule. Joule is, let's zoom out, above Kerbin relative to the Sun. It orbits farther out. So the first thing you want to do for get an encounter with a body that is above you is to burn prograde at dusk. So basically when the sun sets. And if we look here, we are on an escape trajectory from burning at dusk, and what that's going to do is it's going to make our orbit higher. If I move that to dawn, it would make our orbit smaller. Like this. So right now it's within Kerbin's orbit. And if I move it back higher, it's going to be above Kerbin's orbit. Yoink. There we go. So that's the first thing you must do, because we're trying to go to Joule here. So we're going to burn a lot more than that, because we need to go a lot higher than that. Burning, 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 burning. And in theory, let's set the target. In theory, I am way overdoing this burn. So what we're going to do, we're going to revert to the original escape trajectory. Like this, and we are going to set up technically periapsis. Okay, periapsis is going to be behind us. That's getting close, getting close. So here we cannot see the amount of fuel this second maneuver node would cost, but we can estimate. Anyway, it's going to cost a lot, as the launch window planner is going to tell us. Okay, not quite there. So once you're at your launch window, you basically want to figure out when to burn prograde again so that your apoapsis intersects your target's orbit. So this is what I'm trying to do here. It's difficult with all the asteroids showing up. Let's see, we're getting closer. Not quite. Tweaking. And there we go. So now we've got an encounter. This is how you do it. We're going to eject from Kerbin. Then we're going to burn again, prograde, after ejecting from Kerbin. And we get an encounter. The reason I was doing it wrong, basically, sorry, I'm tired, I'm doing goofy stuff. Burning further at Kerbin is a bad idea because relative to our current position, we'd be burning radially. So that's no good. So, alright, so you burn at dusk or at sunset to eject, and then once you've ejected, you can burn prograde more until you get an encounter with your target planet. So you can play with the maneuver nodes. But now, yeah, that's going to get us an encounter, but that's basically saying, okay, we're going to jump off a plane above a city, and we're going to open our parachute and just hope we land near our friend's house, or something like that. Jool is particularly interesting here because it's got 5 satellites. 5 natural satellites. And you could want to visit any one of them, or one in particular, or all 5 of them. And because of that, you're going to want to not just get an encounter with Jool, but to get a specific encounter with Jool. And in order to do that, you're going to need to tweak your orbit. And in order to do this, you're going to want to make an adjustment burn. Now, adjustment burns, basically, the reason you do them is because, yeah, burning at periapsis is the most efficient thing, but with the distances involved, a single, even a digit after the period could have a huge difference at periapsis. But even though it's less efficient, we can get more precision out of burning much closer to our target. Now, I'm saying much closer, but you don't want to burn at the moment you're already in your encounter. That's really not efficient. So we're going to set up yet another maneuver node. This time we're going to set it up, I don't know, you can play with this. Now the map view is not perfect for this, but let's say at apoapsis. We're going to add another maneuver node. Now, with the maneuver node open, I'm going to zoom back in on Jool, and I'm going, this is my trajectory, my planned trajectory. If I execute both burns down to a T with very high precision, this is what my orbit is going to look like currently. So now I have a maneuver node open, somewhat near Jool in the future, and I'm looking at Jool. And I'm going to touch and play with the markers here until I get exactly the encounter that I want. So right now I can see I'm going to come underneath Jool, which is not exactly ideal in this case, or perhaps it is for you. But assuming I don't want to go at Jool like this, I'm going to want to do this. And right now it's not working. Okay, why is it not working? Oh, because I'm not making it. Okay, sorry guys. So, very important, prepare your maneuver nodes on the right orbit track. So basically here the blue line is the orbit I'm going to have. Wait, what? Did I make it on green line? Alright guys, there we go. So we needed to prepare the maneuver node on the green line. Of course, if you're doing your maneuver nodes on the fly, which is totally fine, it's not going to be on a different line, it's going to be on your single line orbital trajectory basically. So that's it. So after I created this maneuver node, you can see by looking at Joule, focusing view on Joule, I can tweak my approach. So here, I'm going to make it equatorial. So I get it roughly on the line of Joule's orbit using the normal and anti-normal burn. Then I can play with prograde and radial to get it closer to one of Joule's satellites. For example, I don't know, Lathe. If I want to reach Lathe, I can actually set up an encounter with Lathe before I even encounter Joule. There we go, there we go, there we go. And that's it. We can see we've already gotten an encounter, I think, with Tylo. And if we keep playing with the maneuver node, we can set ourselves up to crash into Joule if we want. But basically we can make ourselves go across the orbit of Lathe. And even though Lathe is not going to be there when we first get there, then we can make yet another maneuver node to slow down. And eventually get an encounter with Lathe. So okay, not an ideal time to get an encounter with Lathe, but you see the idea. So we can come across its orbit. And that's basically how you do it. You can really get precise once you get closer to the target planet, but not quite into its sphere of influence. You can set up a maneuver node and you focus the view on your target. And here we can see it's not perfectly equatorial still. Let's see here. Ooh. Big movements. That's getting more like it. Not perfect, but hey. And if you wanted, for example, you want to set up a resource scanner around Joule for whatever reason, I mean, it's probably quite useless, but hey. Who's judging, right? So there we go. We can insert into Joule's orbit on a polar there we go. Polar orbit right away. We're coming in right on top of Joule, and then we can brake and enter a polar orbit right away for minimal amount of fuel. And that's it. That's really as simple as that. So, sum it all up, you launch either at dusk or dawn, sunset or, you know, morning, around your starting planet, your starting point. Then, once you've escaped that planet's sphere of influence, you burn prograde or retrograde until your orbits intersect, and then you can play with the maneuver node a little bit, and with the radial and anti-radial, to get the first encounter. And then, and only then, when you've gotten your encounter, You can go somewhere close to your apoapsis or whatever, a few days before you reach that target planet. And then you can play again and focus your view on that planet to see exactly where you're going to land yourself. And that's really how you want to do it, because you're going to save a lot of fuel. If you inject into a planet into a random orbit and then you try to fix it to something more precise, it's going to cost you a lot of fuel. If, for example, we'd gotten around Joule on an equatorial orbit and then we want to switch to a polar one, that's going to cost a lot of fuel. At this distance, of course, we don't see the meters per seconds of delta V we require to make this adjustment, but I can assure you it's a lot less. It's probably in the tens to make this adjustment. And if you're around Joule, I can assure you it's going to be in the hundreds. So that's it. So if that helped you, if you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. Comments and feedback in the sections below. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.